We go. Adams, 250 million plan, homeless, mentally ill. Yet another issue, right? It's all about spending with no transparency. Look at this. Look at this. And it actually says, oh, it's good. But he's bumbling, the man with no plan. Yeah, but the problem is, how in the world do 8 million people let these things happen? There's more checking for a person working at a deli, background check, than for the mayor. We have the finance city council person. What are their qualifications? What is the comptroller's qualifications? Nothing. All you do is you smooth up to the Democratic Party or Democrat Party. The reason why it cannot be called Democratic Party is because it's not democratic at all, right? It's just a sad thing that we have to play word games. But what I want to point out here is someone is commenting down here. I've not read anything about an investigation into the nearly 1 billion. Yeah, this person is talking about the Thrive program, which I forget her name, Charlene, used billions of dollars and they can't even account for it. Doesn't that tell you something? That $1 billion of taxpayer money and we can't account for it. Who is responsible for that? That is the so-called city council, the oversight, the U.S. attorney, the federal government. This is all an abuse of the taxpayer. So we need real-time transparency. So I wrote here, the root of the issue is transparency of our government is near zero. This is not just New York City. This is everywhere. Just look at the New York City budget. It's now like $120 billion. It's more than most states. It's incomprehensible and as clear as concrete. Yes, that is true. The reason why our friend de Blasio was not charged, the U.S. attorney said very clearly they could not find a direct benefit, right? He was given out graft, but he wasn't getting it directly. Who knows? Maybe he delayed it. Maybe he gets it 10 years from now or 20 years from now or whatever. But in the public officer corruption law, public official, it has to be a quid pro quo. That means something. There has to be something for something. Quid pro quo. Well, de Blasio either worked it out so he didn't get it directly or it worked out through other parties and they could not find that quo, but they could find the quid. The quid is the graft given out, right? Or accepting the graft, but he never gave anything back. The point is he didn't benefit personally. Maybe the campaign benefited. I guess they also couldn't find straw donors. But you know what? The candidates don't get blamed for straw donors. Straw donors are when the companies, just like recent with our friend Eric Adams, the person gives the checks to the employees and the employees give it to the campaign, right? So that means now it's matched 10 to 1, 12 to 1, whatever it is, with taxpayer money. So there's millions and millions, tens of millions. Even the state is in on this game now. The state is taking your taxpayer money and giving it to campaigns. And this doesn't absolve the for-profit companies. They're in the game too. You can just look at the election database, just search for elections Title Force or elections transparency. Just look in. I'd put links here, but they delete the links, so I can't put links. But I'll put it in the comment of this video. The very core of the system is there's no transparency. So please comment, and we want less robot comments. Whoever these people that are sending robot comments, we've got robots that remove your comments. So you might as well stop. The robots, we don't need robot comments, and I don't know who these crazy people are with the Bitcoin, and nobody cares about your password. And we don't want robots. So please, the people, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you're a robot. If you're a robot, please tell your master that we've got robots that stop you, right? So please. We need a direct initiative system. What that means is you, as a constituent, can bypass the legislature. They're not going to let us do this, right? And put ballot initiatives on the ballot. So, for instance, let's create a 2-year term limit for all public offices and all government workers. 2, 3, whatever the number is, 1, I think. And now that means we can cycle through all these positions with all the people, right? How well informed will the people be if they're in there implementing or designing systems that help the public? Right now, we have basically a government worker class, right? And literally, they look down on us. They have special privileges. Do you know that if you're speeding in New York City, I don't do this, but I barely drive. I mostly bike, but run and walk. But there are reports, personal reports that we are aware of, that you just show your mayor's office ID, and the officer says keep going, right? So speeding is okay if you work in the government class. Do you know that the government class gets infinite health care forever, right? For not only themselves, but their family. And you know what the teachers union is doing now? They refuse to pay co-pays, right? They say, we're not paying any co-pays. But what are you doing for your health care? You have to pay enormous health care, enormous co-pays, enormous deductibles, enormous, right? We barely have insurance anymore, right? But the government workers don't. The government workers have infinite health care, infinite pension. Some of them, what they do is they get their salary up for the last few years and they retire. And their pension is based on the last few years. You saw that current Madry girlfriend somehow is paid 2 times as much as the mayor. We need a simple rule. You work in government for a year and you cycle. You got to move on somewhere else, right? And that means every common person gets to cycle through these offices. Do you think it takes a genius to work in government? I don't think so. We prove that in every election. We have unqualified people run as how in the world can a comptroller know very little about accounting? I mean, they're not an accountant, right? Isn't that what a comptroller is supposed to do? No, it's a political office. It's a figurehead. It's a platform to run for some other office. Well, we don't want that. We don't want career, whatever they call themselves, right? We want real people cycling through these offices, and let's just have mayor for a year, right? I just use that as an example. Mayor for a year, cycle through, and maybe mayor for a month, a week. Maybe it should be a work slot, right? You work it a few hours and then you go back. I'm trying to point out that we can do these things. Create 2-year term limits, whatever the number is. We cycle through. We need an Ontario law. Ontario law, in search on Ontario law, hopefully it takes off. Every public official and their immediate staff would wear body cams and broadcast all their interactions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, available via real-time API for analysis. Because it's a lot of information and it'd be hard for the general public to analyze it. We could take the current campaign finance database and just look for places where all the employees contribute the same amount to a particular campaign and get matching funds. Well, that's a red signal. That's could be straw donors, right? That's exactly what happened with Eric Adams. We need an entire election system to be run by nonpartisan, independent, and simple guidelines that can be implemented by a computer program. If anyone ever watched The Day the Earth Stood Still, we kind of need something like that, where we humans are not good at policing. They're not good at honesty. They're not corruption. What is it? Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So we need guidelines. That's what law is. Law, the rule of law, as opposed to the rule of corruption and patronage and who you know. That's the law, right? Well, we need. The problem with law is it's so slow, right? And you have to monitor. Democracy requires constant vigilance, right? But law is so slow and so methodic, and it's very good. The cases are very good. But if it's like rats or mice or roaches, you see one roach, right? There's a million roaches that you don't see. That's the way corruption works. There's some cases by the Department of Investigation, and they show the housing, they're paying themselves millions of dollars. How is that not a red flag? Why is there no limit on these publicly funded public housing or nonprofits? It seems as if the law is wrong, right? There should be strict limits. But no, the nonprofits are independent agencies. Well, they don't get public money then. That's the way the federal government works. They earmark the money, or they say, you don't get money unless you follow these rules, right? Well, going back to the roaches, we have a few visible roaches in the Department of Investigation cases, but how in the world can the Department of Investigation investigate everything, right? Because they have whatever, 10 people, 20 people, whatever it is, and it has to be done in a methodic way. It has to be done so that the public can help. Well, how can the public help? We know nothing about the internals of these nonprofits, right? Nothing, zero. And do you think that the officers at these nonprofits are going to turn themselves in? No, they don't do that. They make sure that there's enough graft to go around, so it keeps everybody quiet. It's just the way the employees work. They're all fearful of their job, and the only thing that allows them to do that is the rest of us that are milked or taxed or treated like dirt, right? So what you have to do is wake up and see that you are the owner of New York City. You are not a customer. It's a perverse inversion of what actually is happening, is true, right? The government class and the corrupt, dishonest nonprofit class and the for-profit corporations that pull the strings on everything, and the rich families and the rich corporate owners. They're pulling the strings on everybody, right? But they're very hard to see, right? I don't know S.L. Green and the Dersh and the Silversteins and I don't know how to get to them, right? But we can cycle through government employees, and I'm sure that's going to affect them, right? Because if you cycle through common people through these offices, especially deputy mayor and chief of staff, and then you'll get some eyes, and some of those eyes will say, wait a second, what's going on here? This guy is getting millions on these special contracts, kickbacks, and I'm not getting it. So that will be an incentive to probably report it. The way it works now is they spread the graft around to anyone who's looking, or they fire.
there's cases where they'll fire too because they control everything, right? The city and the infrastructure, and it all goes back to, I believe, the Democrat Party, right? And I'm not saying there's one person or three or a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy. It's just everybody's in it for themselves, and the people that are not in the game are not in the game, and nobody cares about them. The only way to get everybody in the game is to cycle people through, right? And the more whistleblowers we have in the government, have you even heard ever of a government New York City employee reporting corruption? Very rare, very rare. Whistleblower, there should be a whistleblower policy for New York City. Number one, we all started with transparency, right? And we'll end it with transparency. The sham transparency that we have with Socrata, and you don't even know these terms, right? Electronics, they record all, for millions and millions of dollars, they record all the city council videos. It's a complete sham. And Gail Brewer and her open data law, Gail is well intentioned, but she's not competent to handle transparency. It's just a simple fact. And what we need is competent people that build a transparent system. We have an independent budget office. I've testified to them that they need real-time apps, right, that show the budget in real time. People don't want to talk about something that happened 4 years ago. There's no follow-up. We don't have the authority of the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. We can't indict or subpoena witnesses or bank records. The general public can't do that. It has to be public. It has to be available to the public. But we do have the campaign finance, what they're willing to disclose, right? But nobody even looks at that because the press, the media, they're all part of the game, and they don't want to talk about these details because why? Why does the press not want to talk about campaign spending and waste and abuse? Because they're the beneficiary of the campaign spending. Where do you think the campaign money goes? To print shops and to TV ads and to CNBC or CNN or wherever it goes. And here locally, it's probably more the print shops that get this. And you could see it. Look at any government flyer, and it has the union printed little label on it, right? They make sure that they do that, especially the Democrat Party here in New York City. Why do you think that's happening? Nobody wants to disclose the enormous spending in campaign, and it's small compared to the New York City budget. So we don't know where to go with this, but the end is the taxpayer is always paying for all this. And if you're not in the game, and you'll know if you're in the game because you get no work jobs, patronage jobs, your family is all nepotism connected, and you're working at a nonprofit, and you basically do nothing and you get paid a lot, right? You know you're not in the game when they're nickel and diming you to death. And literally, I know of people that are paid by these nonprofits. They work 5 days a week, 9 hours a day, and they get paid $97 every 2 weeks. Imagine that. $97. That adds up to like $2 an hour. That should be a violation of law. But somehow these nonprofits are able to get away with this. In the meantime, they pay themselves millions. Anyway, this is getting too long, so peace out.